Okay, hello everybody. I thought I would put this video out um, to tell everyone about how GhostScope development is going. It's been a number of months since I put out the first video, and since then there has been some great feedback from those that decided to have a go, and I've been working on some hopefully big improvements, particularly over the holidays. And it's now in a state, I think, where I can show you what's changed. For those of you that haven't seen GhostScope before, there is another video which gives you a first insight into what it's about and what it can be used for. But in a nutshell, it is a tool that allows you um, to take your DVR footage from your flights and tag the various laps that you've completed, and then a tool which allows you to line up the laps side by side and really understand where a particular lap is gaining or losing lap time relative to another through the video. So looking at different lines, different quadcopter attitudes at various different moments. But the idea is that it will give you some insight into what changes you might need to make to go faster. So let me just now take you through this latest version, GhostScope 2, um, and we'll go from there. It's probably worth mentioning that there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to improve the user experience. The first version was very memory intensive and a bit clunky and slow. It was just a bit of a sandbox to prove the concept, but I've worked hard behind the scenes to um, refactor the code to use different libraries. The videos are no longer buffered in their entirety into the memory, but it's much more dynamic. Um, and Hopefully that will improve the overall experience as well as allow those with less powerful machines to still get some value from this. The other side of it is also proper logging so that um, different uses of the code and tracking down bugs and things like that will be a lot easier. But anyway, away from the boring stuff, let me show you what it does. So when you first fire it up, we just go through the license check and click on there to bring up the main screen. And from here, this is the point where you will load in a video. So let's do that. Um, we are able to load in MP4 files as well as .ts files. Actually, what will happen is if you load a .ts file, it will re-encode it on the fly and save it as a .mp4 file. That's the one which I use for all the ongoing analysis. It's easier to work with within the code, so I can do that. Um, let's just load in round 3, MP4, for example. And we can see here it loads in. Now, as it happens, I will remove this and load a different one just to show you what it happens when you bring in one that has no information. So let's just load in this file here. So you can see it comes in with its name. You can go and edit the name, and then it gives you some information about that video. And let's just now double click on it to bring up the viewer. Oh, I've chosen one where I'm on the ground, but anyway, the idea is that you will go in, and when you go through the start finish gate, you will hit the number lap that it's on. So this is I've just hit as lap 1, and then you will go off and fly for a bit, and let's see if we can find. There's the start finish. So well, just as a demo, we can now hit another key to sort of mark that lap beginning and end. And then we can save that, and that information will stay with the video. So let's just remove that one and load in one that I've already done. So let's load in round5.mp4, and you can see here how that saved meta file, next time you load the video, will come in with the video. And here are the various laps that have been tagged. So we can double click on it again and bring it in, and you can see those different laps. We can navigate around the viewer just by clicking on the progress bar. If we double click on any of the laps in the progress bar, it will move to the nearest start or end of the lap. The navigation bars are very similar to as before, and then there's also some extra toggle options down the bottom. So at any stage, you can click to the low res mode, and this will help the speed back of the playback with less memory overhead. So for less powerful machines, that's a useful thing to have. And then there's some other options down here, which I won't go into now. But effectively, that's the main uh, uh, test case for the viewer. There is also another feature in this viewer, which I thought I should just mention, is also the ability to export your laps. So if you hit export, it will bring up a little file explorer window. And in here, you can add the file that you want to create. It will create a video starting at the first lap, finishing at the last lap that you tagged. It'll have some lead in time and lead out time at the beginning of the first lap and at the end of the last lap. Include a logo, include some audio. You click export, and basically it will export that full res with those extra bits included. What that will produce is a video file which has on the right hand side the laps with a live counter around that lap of your current lap time, and a little logo at the bottom, so you can see if I jump ahead, you can see the first lap is done, and now it's just time running up for the second lap. So a useful little export feature that allows you to trim off the beginning and ends of videos that you're not interested in, but then also maybe this is something you might do fairly regularly if you're posting some of your best laps to the forums. So yeah, nice little feature in there just to hopefully save some time. So we're going to close that. Now we can load in multiple videos. So let's load in another one. Let's load in round 10, for example. And you can see this then brings in some additional round with the various laps. And I will introduce to you now the concept of a project file. So it's a .gsc file. And at this point, we can save this as a project file by just hitting Save Project in here. And then next time, when we load up the software, we can load a project instead. And when we load that, it brings in the videos that you saved with that project. Now from here, let's go into the scope. So here is the scope, and I will pick up round 5. Round 5, let's do lap 2 and lap 4, just for example. And this is as before. So on the left, you've got this lap 2. On the right, you've got this lap 4. Now, the next thing, which is very different to what you saw before, was we now have this this graph in the middle, which gives you a visual representation of the difference in lap time between those two videos. So the lap on the right is slower by 1.5 seconds. So at the moment, basically, the video falls behind, and it's behind the line saying that it's slower by 1.5 seconds. Now you can navigate around the video by clicking on this bar, and you'll see that there are 2 dots. So blue is the one on the left, red is the one on the right, and this gap effectively between the two is a visual representation of how much slower the one on the right is than the left, because you can see that it's behind. And as you play, you can see how those buttons move. You can also navigate around by clicking on the progress bars. The blue bar here shows you the end point on the red lap of the blue lap. Again, the blue lap finishes earlier, so that's showing that it's faster. And then this green line here is the how many frames the video on the right has been nudged by. So just to remind you, this nudging, if let's go right back to the video and we can just work through how that would work. So here's the first obstacle. So at this point here, we want to work out which is faster or slower between the two. The video on the left, we can see we're a bit further away from the gate. So just to help us work out what's going on, let's just draw that gate on. We can mirror the annotation to the right-hand side. And now we can nudge the video, try and find the point where we think it's closest. Now, actually, I've not chosen a particularly good match here because the line is very different. You can see here how cones are here, but we're very much entering from in front of the gate. You can see here on the one on the right that actually we are quite a different angle to the gate. But let's just say that we think that that's the closest that we can get. And at this point here, we can hit the button M to mark a point where we think both laps are equal in distance. And you can see that the line then jumps up and says, okay, that is now tagged to be same distance. And we know that that point there, the video on the right is actually 0.278 faster than the lap on the left. So you can see here how the green line goes above the dotted to say it's faster. And then it has no other information, but it knows that at the end of the lap, it will be slower. So it then just does a line all the way back. But let's continue through the video. Let's find another point in the lap. So in fact, this is just the dive gate on the left. So let's just scan this back to be. So let's say we're just there on the left. So that's how the gate looks. Now the one on the right, we're going to have to nudge this on considerably to match that point. And let's say there's about the same. So we're then going to mark that point. So you can see between the 2 points that we've marked, that's where we've lost the time. But you can go back and you can basically find those points and work it out. And you'll get then a full demonstration on the graph of where you've won and lost time between the two laps. So that's how that interface works. So we've explained there's basically the normal navigation bar, there's the information about the frames, there is also then the buttons to nudge the videos, do the annotations. Just on the left, I actually clicked it on, but I didn't explain what I was doing. There's the mirror annotations, and this basically means whatever you draw on one video appears on the other. If you draw on the left-hand side, you get yellow. If you draw on the right-hand side, you get purple. We can clear both of those. There is also the low-res buffered version, again, just to try and improve the performance for low performance machines. There is a little status up here, which is a little light. When you first load up the videos, it will be red, just saying that it's buffering in the background. There should be no loss of interaction with the GUI, but the low res mode will be equally as slow until that light goes green, but it doesn't take that long. And then there is this final function called align distance. I'll come back to that in a minute because I wanted to just mention that once you've got this, the various points around the two laps tagged to match the distance, we can then save it to the scope. And when you save it to the scope, it stays with that scope file that I mentioned earlier, that project file that I mentioned earlier. So when you next load in a project file, all this information that you've tagged will be ready, available to use again. So actually, as it happens in this project, I've actually got some already, and you can select them from this central drop down. So let's just choose this one here. and you can see basically it brings back these two laps that I was looking at, and you can see how it's been tagged across the two. In this particular instance, the files are separated this much, but let's just go back to the beginning and basically start playing, so you can see how one lap is moving ahead of the other, as we mentioned before. But the next key thing, which I think is hopefully a useful feature, is if we look down at this bottom tag, it says align distance. If we click on it, format of the middle changes, and rather than having two buttons, we now have a single button. And this basically tracks the video on the left, but the video on the right is sped up and slowed down to match the tagged points. So we can see here that the video on the right is slightly ahead. So it's 0.14 seconds ahead at this moment. And there are a number of nudged frames to make that happen. If we hit play, you can see now how the time delta is moving dynamically around the lap. The nudges is moving dynamically around the lap. And this is doing its best to effectively match the videos by distance as opposed to just time. And I'm hoping that this will give you the chance to really learn about the different lines between two different laps. If you've got one lap that's particularly faster than another, then it'll only be relevant for the short moments that you have effectively got the nudges set. But this basically scales those nudges around the whole lap to give you a bit more insight into what's going on. Now, as the lap progresses, the nudges will speed up and slow down. And the idea is that the laps then should complete at the same time if they're in sync. And we can see here, there we go, and we finish both laps simultaneously, showing that the video on the right was 0.789 seconds ahead. As it happens, I don't know whether you noticed, but the video on the left, this was me flying. I missed the final start finish gate, so that's where all of that time effectively was recovered when looking between lap A on the right and video B on the, sorry, video A on the left and video B on the right. So yeah, that's a whirlwind tour of this new development, GhostScope. I'll include some chapter markers in this video and also a link to the Discord server. If you are interested to try this software, to demo it, um, you're more than welcome. I very much value any feedback to try and make this a useful tool for the community. And also, if you want to support it as a user or a developer, then you would be very welcome. So yeah, get a chance to use it. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, let me know what you think. Thank you very much.